Hi, this is Benoy Thanjan, your host of the Solar Maverick Podcast, and also the founder and CEO of Renew Energy. Renew Energy, we're a solar developer and consulting firm. We've developed more than 100 megawatts of solar projects across the US, and we help clients execute clean energy projects with confidence. We act as your owner's rep, overseeing developers, EPCs, and financing partners to de-risk your project and keep it on schedule. We also provide development as a service, supporting origination strategy and execution so you can advance projects without building a large internal team. On the renewable energy credit side, we offer REC brokerage, REC asset management, and custom renewable energy credit research, helping clients understand pricing, policy shifts, and long-term market dynamics. In addition, we provide new market analysis and financial modeling to evaluate opportunities, assess project viability, and support investment decisions. To learn more, reach out at info@renewenergy.com. That's info at reneuenergy.com. We'll also have information on the notes of the podcast as well. Let's get into it.
You have a magical number of $500. Once people have to pay $500 a month for electricity, they are looking for solutions to do something about it. So basically, utility is very smart. A lot of people have it on auto pay, and so they don't really care. It just happens. They just pay the bill and move on with their lives until it reaches $500. And then people say like, wait, what is this in my budget? They notice it.
Hello and welcome to the Solar Maverick Podcast, where solar meets entrepreneurship and experience. I'm your host, Benoy Thanjan, so let's get into it.
Hi, this is Benoy, your host of the Solar Maverick Podcast. I'm really excited on this episode to have Hervé Billet. He's the CEO and co-founder of Sunvoy. Sunvoy is the first white label customer portal and fleet management app built by solar installers for solar installers. Their platform simplifies the complexities of running a solar business, enabling companies to scale efficiently with seamless integration and effortless results. We've had Hervé on the past on the Solar Maverick podcast. Hervé actually has his own podcast with Sunvoy with his partner Joe. I was actually their first interview on the podcast, and I appreciate the opportunity. Hervé, welcome back to the Solar Maverick podcast. Great to have you again.
Hi, yeah, thank you for having me.
Oh, anytime. So I know we talked about this in the previous interview, but for our audience who we call Mavericks, our listeners, it would be great if you could tell them a quick overview of your background, your journey in solar, and then where you are today with Sunvoy. It's really interesting, the path to get here.
All right, well, the path, what really got me into solar, I designed the first Belgium solar car. So those are cars usually designed by student teams all over the world, really. Like a lot of universities participated in it, except our university didn't believe we could pull it off, so they didn't really help us at the beginning. So we formed our own nonprofit to design and build a car. So I was responsible for the chassis of the car, so I did a 3D structural analysis. I designed our own rims of the car and the suspension and things like that. But it was a solar car, so I was also doing the marketing piece. I speak French, so I was doing the French part of the country's marketing in Belgium. And that really got me closer to solar. How an amazing technology. Then I started first solar company. I came to the US, and first solar company in Alabama, of all places. My wife's from Alabama. And so I should have looked at a political map, not a solar radiation map, which I actually did. You have 40% more sunshine in Alabama than in Belgium. So you install the same panel in Alabama than in Brussels, and you would have like 40% more power. It's like, this is totally going to be easy to start a solar company there. Well, wrong place, wrong time. But I learned a lot, and then started another solar company several years later, this time in Northern Virginia. And that one worked really well. So that's the story.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's helpful. And, it's interesting because the Solar Maverick podcast is about solar and entrepreneurship. It's so interesting to hear your journey. And if you could go into more detail too of what like Sunvoice does, I know I mentioned it, quickly, and it's great too because it's created by an installer for installers, right? And you have experience with, having a company and installing solar. Then also too, you work for the Department of Energy at a certain time, at a unique time, right? In the solar industry, and like there was the grant, right? The 1603 grant, and some unique technologies that the government invested in as well.
Yeah, big time. Yeah. So yes, I run a solar company for 7, 8 years, and we needed better software to really do what I needed in my company. And an important part was white label for all the marketing piece. But once you figure out the marketing, we built that part and we connected all the different inverters that we had. We ended up with a solar fleet management system. And again, I'm an engineer, I'm a master electrician, and what I wanted was to better manage my own systems that we installed over the years. A fancy word is like, an asset management system. And so I built it because I wanted to have something that worked really well for me. When a ticket comes in, for example, of a homeowner or commercial property manager opens a ticket, what I want is to have as much information as possible, like on one screen. Show me what inverters are there, show me the error codes, show me like the address and the place of the so everything in one place. Usually, even if you use a ticketing system today or CRM, it has, when a ticket comes in, the first 10 minutes of your time, you go hunt for the data. It's like, what did we install? We installed like 3 solar edge inverters there, and maybe there's another building associated with it. Are we over or underproducing? Oh, let's go find out the contract. And so you spend your time searching for data. And so the first 10 minutes or longer, if you can easily find the data, I wanted to condense that. And so just let's pull everything up automatically, everything we can find that's important, and display it so that you can go into like analyzing the data instead of finding the data. So that's just another piece where it comes really from like, I had this, when in my own solar company in the early days, I was also doing my own O&M. So I solved my own pain points, which now, larger asset managers use. And another benefit is that we start doing this for residential. In residential, you have high volume and you never have time to really fill up all the data. So all the data pieces are kind of like all over the place and need to be automatically condensed and aggregated, which, if you do some commercial, you have the time to fill out a form, or especially utility scale. Think about also energy weather station that you need to go putting together. It's like super expensive and it takes time to connect everything. Well, Resi doesn't have that. And you don't have the luxury to fill all the fields of asset management platform. So residential's high volume could also be then used on CNI. And so that's the platform that we built.
Yeah, definitely. That's really helpful to really go into detail about how Sunvoy's platform basically helps installers efficiently do so many different things, right? And then I think this podcast is interesting because you're going to focus on customer acquisition, right? For residential, which, everyone's always trying to figure out what's the cheapest way to get customers. And then also too, you've been through an exit of a solar company. The Solar Maverick podcast is about solar and entrepreneurship. I'm curious, like, I guess we'll start with, selling your solar company and that whole process, and then we could go into the customer acquisition piece. You built and sold a solar company. Like, what drove your decision to sell, and how did you know at that time it was the right time to sell? Usually people stay in the business and wait till they're ready to retire, and then they, find a buyer. But it seemed like there was some sort of plan or strategy within a certain period of time.
It seemed like that. There was a strategy in place, but to your question, was it the right time? You only know it in hindsight, right? Once you're in the middle of it, like I made some decisions, but who knows? But what I really learned from it is I grew the business, and my mission of the business was to install as many solar panels as we could to fight climate change. And I was thinking to myself, it was also the time where the Ukraine war started and so on, and so how can we fight more climate change? And it's like, well, I can double in size the business. Like, what about that? And it's like, well, even if I double in size, it's only so much I could do. It was like I'm running like a residential and CNI vertically integrated EPC. Even if I double in size, I could literally calculate how much carbon emissions I could save. It's like, okay, whatever, I triple. But I'm not going to quadruple. So that's what I could be doing. So then I thought like, well, I was already kind of stagnating, so to speak, for myself, because I had a management team, processes in place, things were running, and I was thinking like, what's next? I had time to be at my desk, My phone wasn't ringing anymore. People taking care of the business for me, so to speak. I wouldn't say like it runs on automatic pilot quite yet. There's always a fire I need to go take care of, right? But I had a time to analyze what other things I was going to do. So I took some licenses to become an HVAC journeyman, installed some of those HVAC mini splits and heat pumps, see if that's something that we could add to the business. And then also started Sunvoy. Like I needed specific software, but the marketing has always been very important to me. So not just a customer portal where a homeowner that you sell $20, $30, $60,000 system, they want to follow the trajectory of the project. If you can track a $20 Domino pizza, you expect to track a $20,000 solar system. So that didn't exist, but I wanted to be brand specific. It didn't exist, so I started building it myself. And so I realized that you could do different things, and then Sunvoy was actually the easiest to grow. And then I was running two businesses, because Sunvoy at first were like, oh, that's cool for myself. And then, I know some solar CEOs, and then like, oh, you also want it? Like, yeah, sure, like that's great. Start selling it, and then you realize like, wait a second, like they spend money on this. They expect commercially available, like, a help desk, and like, bugs are solved quickly. And so like I was running a second business, and that was just too much. When everything was on automatic pilot, it's great. But if you have a fire and then you have two businesses with two large fires happening at the same time, you really feel the pressure. So that happened, and I had to make a decision. So it was time for me to either stop Sunvoy, like give up that idea, or sell Ipsen. And Ipsen was sellable, so to speak. That brings me to like where the value is, what I learned in selling your business. Like I learned the hard way that the value is in several pieces. One is marketing. Do you have a brand? Do you have a recognition in the space? Do people know you? If they recognize you, is it in a positive way? And then, so having a strong brand is important. And then the other piece is process and procedures. We had a process and procedures for nearly everything. You have an angry customer, make sure you have an escalation system that, not every angry customer goes straight to the CEO. So make sure that you have a process. We had departments with department heads, we had budgets a year in advance, and we also had like the department head who said like, hey, I have too much work. They knew what they needed. They said like, hey, I need 2 more people. HR was then in charge to find those 2 extra people. They did the training, the onboarding, like things were running. At some point, I didn't know what was being hired anymore. I was completely out of it. So the departments needed certain jobs done and with KPIs, and it was running. So when you have a problem in the business, the answer is not like, oh, let me solve it. The answer is like, add an additional procedure in place to solve that problem. I'm taking generalities here, right? But that was what I learned you needed to do, so that you also stay out of the solution. Because once you sell it, the business needs to run without you. If you are the one that keeps everything running, you can't leave the business, because you walk away with a value in the business. So the value that we sold was a strong brand that is good for the end customer,
Yeah.
but also with vendors. So I learned that like if you have a strong brand, things go wrong or something, or you miss a payment, we always paid our vendors on time, which after the fact, I learned like, wait, we always did that, and not everybody pays their vendors on time. Should have asked for discount. But it gives you leverage. If you have a strong brand, that means not just to your homeowners, but to your vendors, partners, everybody in the industry. And so that strong brand has multiple repercussions. So those 2 things is what I learned in selling the business. A third part is that you're not just selling the business with a few meetings on the weekends while you're doing everything else. I saw that coming, and so with my business partner, Joe, he's like, Joe, you're going to run the business, and I go sell the business. And I am very happy that we made that decision, because that's exactly what was needed. I can easily imagine that if you try to sell a business, you lose your focus on running the business and things go wrong. You know it's too late. The sales numbers go down. And then by the time you close on the sale of the business, then the sales numbers are so bad that they don't want to buy it anymore. You go back, drama here, drama there, and you still have a business to sell. So if the business doesn't go well, guess what? People don't want to buy it. Although they look at long term and all of that, sure, but at the same time, you still need to have a strong business to make it attractive. So yeah, part of the selling the business is also just like any sale. You sell a pencil, you sell solar panels, or you sell a business. Part of it is giving a good impression. You sell a business, you need to make a good story. You need to be able to sell your own business too. But I think the previous point was really important. You don't just do it with a quick phone call. It takes time, takes effort. And it's not just one meeting that you're going to have. It's like any sales process. You don't just have sale like a quick sale, especially of your business. It's going to take some time and effort that you need to budget for.
Yeah, I mean, these are all great insights and advice, and the whole part about systems and marketing and the brand, and obviously sales, right, is a huge aspect of any sale of a business. And then I guess like just one more question, like if you're a solar founder today, which you still are with Sunvoy, and you're looking to potentially sell your business within like 3 to 5 years, what are the top things that you would do now to maximize the valuation for that business?
Well, one is like to have clean accounting books, right? In the end, the sale, they look at the numbers. And if there are things that I'm of the opinion that when you try to sell a business, you could do a lot of the work and then not sell it. There was a lot of drama involved. And for Ibsen, until the very, very, very last day, I felt like there was a chance we just walk away from this if this is not good enough for all types of reasons. So until the very, very last moment, like when it's actually done deal, there was a chance that it would not happen. And now you still have to run your business. So I would never make myself decisions that I think are good for the sale of a business or for potential investor, because you make a decision for one investor that you may have conversations with and then they don't buy it. And now you made these decisions for a person who's not even part of the story anymore, or another investor comes in that wants the opposite. Like it's hard. So I always make the decisions that I think I can live with, that I prefer. Maybe it's not always the best valuation, but at least it's something long-term that I can stand by. So I saw some people giving advice like, yeah, make strategic decisions for optimizing the sales price, and it's not always something I could live with. So that's one. I always make long-term decisions no matter what.
Yeah, I mean, everything is long-term. I just feel like, the solar industry is extremely small. And then, everyone talks as well. And then just if you treat people, just look always for what's best in the long term, everything, will work out. And, a lot of companies are always trying to do shortcuts, especially, when you're talking about quality of the workmanship or what they're like guaranteeing as far as like production and savings. And so these are all great points that you're making.
And I'm doing the same also with Sunvoy. Maximize our brand, build a lot what we can do internally. So I built like a vertically integrated solar company, Ibsen Solar, where everything was done in-house, from marketing, sales, operations to O&M, just everything in-house to have good, strong quality, so that the homeowner cannot just point to like, well, there is a TPO, there is an installer, there is like an asset owner, like who's who. Like once you have everything on one roof, you are responsible to do good work. You cannot point a finger to a subcontractor of some sort. So that's how I did at Ibsen Solar, and I see myself being kind of boring because I'm doing the same inside where we have our own developers. We build the vast majority of all our features and platform and tools is built internally. Few pieces we have, for example, payout system. We didn't build like an entire billing payouts banking system, like we use a third-party system for that. But most of it is built ourselves. We could have outsourced IT, we could have some other teams or other pieces of software, like meshing it together, but most of it is built by us so that you control the code long-term. And guess what? You need to maintain it, things break, but you're in control. Many times when you use like a third-party piece of software and there's a bug, you are waiting on other teams, other people to fix it. If you build it yourself, you can fix it yourself. That's the big advantage.
Oh yeah, for sure. And then can you talk about like building a brand and marketing? Like what have you been doing? Obviously, like you're now creating your own contact, with the Sunvoy podcast. How are you able to, obviously there are a lot of companies out there that have like a platform. How are you able to differentiate through marketing what your product is offering?
That's a really good question, because I can go back to my Ibsen Solar days where a person asked me like, how are you different than the other installer? They install the same solar panels as you. And I was like, damn right they are. So why are we different? If you have an impact drill, you're basically my competitor. And then you think more about like, well, is anyone with an impact drill will your competitor? And then the answer is not really. I can take two examples, right? One is going to be Epson Solar, and then I'll explain the Sunvoy piece. But so with Epson Solar, we realized like we wanted to be a B Corp, where you actually take care of your employees and people and the planet and so on. Not everybody does that. Now, not everybody with an impact drill knows a lot about solar. Not everybody with impact drill has done a lot of quality projects. Not everybody with an impact drill has a lot of happy customers that you have pictures with, you have videos about, they speak well about you, they give you referrals, you can call them back, you do company events where they show up. It's like all of this starts accumulating. They're like, yeah, no, we're not just another solar installer. You build a community. And once you do that, once you stay in contact with your customers, some of them become friends. I'm still in contact with several of them. That is actually a piece that differentiates you. So trying to find what differentiates you, it took me a while, but we became part of Amicus. Amicus is a network of quality solar companies across the US and Canada and Puerto Rico and so on. And it is being part of networks like that you listen how other solar CEOs are running their business and learn from others what works well. And then again, that's another differentiator. Giving back to the community, being part of policy. I spend a lot of time on the policy side, although I can tell you I'm an engineer. Reading those long texts of policies, that's really hard on me. It was also before AI could summarize everything in just a paragraph. Yeah, not everybody with an impact drill is out there helping to make better rules for the community. I was part in DC to increase the maximum energy production that you could interconnect with. Part of different rules in Virginia. So where I really operate as a business, I have long-lasting rules and regulations that I impacted. So pretty proud of that. For Sunvoy, we're an international company, so we're not really part of policy and regulations like that. But we are, again, building the brand, just done differently. We use different platforms. We use LinkedIn a lot more, simply because it's B2B sale, so it's B2C. So the homeowners that you want to reach were not really on LinkedIn. So there's no reason to really market there a lot. Whereas with Sunvoy, a lot of our clients are on LinkedIn. So it's a real way to market. We use a lot of our content as former installers because we see that's a difference. A lot of software is built by, guess what, IT people. And not every person in IT has been on the roof, stand on the roof, hold solar panels, connected inverters. Once you do that, you learn about some complication. And it's that informs what our software or how our software is built. And of course, we still listen to our customers about what they really want because the industry is also changing, right? Is that what differentiates in the marketing is around us being former installers. That is special, that's unique, and that gives us an advantage.
I agree. I mean, that's a huge advantage when it comes to the Sunvoy platform. Installers, help at creating obviously a solution for other installers, and all those lessons learned, I'm sure, are applied to your platform and app or the Sunvoy. So
I can give so many examples. For example, when you're a solar installer, like the number one thing that you see in your fleet management is all your systems have, not all of them, a lot of systems have communication issues. The Wi-Fi just goes and doesn't get reconnected. And it's the number one call we receive on our O&amp team is like, how do I reset my Wi-Fi? We built something to fully automate that part. We know if you have like a Tesla, an Enphase, or a storage system connected, we know what needs to be done to reconnect it. And so when we detect that the Wi-Fi went out, we see the error code of the inverter that's related to a communication error, then we just let the homeowner know how to reconnect it. And guess what? We send the tutorial about how to reconnect it that we wrote ourselves to that homeowner. And obviously we send a tutorial about a solar edge if they have a solar edge installed. So make it simple. But so that is one time-saving mechanism. Sounds simple, but when you have a lot of installations, you spend a lot of time on that simple issue again and again every day. So it's things like that we can help with, that we just fully automate.
Yeah, that's really helpful. I really appreciate you going into detail. And then when we go to like customer acquisition, like what is some of the most practical ways and effective that you're seeing installers lower acquisition costs today? I think you have a unique position being part of Sunvoy and working with all these installers and learning, right, from the data and working with them. How are, companies in this environment too, with the big beautiful bill now too, has impacted how people are financing residential solar, meaning like you're not seeing a lot of ownership going forward. You'll see a lot of leases.
I think, to me, I reserve my judgment. I think there was a good chance that the people that wanted to own their power, maybe a bit more wealthy people that could afford a down payment and own cash, I think about the same amount of people are still going to do it. That's my take on it. We'll talk again in a year, see that's possible. No, I think that the people, let's say you are a lawyer working hard all day, you have a family, and you come home and you already did, you speak with your husband or wife and you say like, well, we already did the kitchen remodeling. What project do we do next year? It's like, oh, I've always wanted to have solar panels. Like, oh, well, let's check it out. It's not that those people really follow the policy of solar and know about the ITC. It's kind of like it's time for them to think about owning their power, or they maybe read something in the news about like the grid is not stable or electricity prices go up. Hey, let's check out solar. They give the solar installer a call. If they did that last year, the installer would tell them like, look, you need to go solar right now, otherwise you lose the 30% tax credit. So that sales conversation, I think a lot of leads came in, were closed right away because of that. But people thinking about solar today, they give a call to their solar installer and it's like, oh, besides all the solar, wasn't like an incentive something? And the installer says like, oh no, there's no incentive anymore, but here's a payback time and you can own your own power. And then they say, okay, the numbers may not be as good, so certain people may not want to do it, but it's not as going to be a massive crash in demand. I think the demand, people still gonna check it out. That's my take on it. So we'll see if that's true or not.
Yeah, I mean, that's an interesting point. I'm curious to see, I feel like installers will try to push the leasing product because it's less money, obviously, out of pocket, right? You don't have that big initial investment, so it's an easier sale.
It's an easier sale. So is sales going to go down or up? If it's easier to sell a $200 a month lease compared to like $20,000 solar system, maybe if more... I'm only really connected to vertically integrated installers, right? The sales orgs I'm less connected with. So to those vertically integrated solar companies that are now like more looking into TPOs and they go from selling a $20,000 cash system to like, oh, just $200 a month, it may be easier to sell. So maybe those salespeople have been selling cash deals for many years and loan deals. Now it's like, oh, well, that's easy. So I'm not so sure that it's going to be such a big crash. So we'll see how the demand for solar goes. Yeah, we'll know in a few months.
Yeah, we'll know for sure. It'll be interesting to see for sure. I mean, these are all great points that you're making. What trends are you seeing in the solar industry? Obviously, there's been a lot of changes but I believe like with the data that you have from the platform and working with a lot of different installers, you have a unique perspective on, trends in the solar industry. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, I see the actual install numbers for real, not what gets permitted or what gets bought, but also the actual numbers. And I cannot speak for any customer specifically, of course. I'll keep that nicely tight. But I do see that a lot was installed end of last year. And by a lot, I mean a lot. So I think a lot of solar installers are actually had a lot of installation. I don't know if that relates to profitable, but it looks to me that they were very profitable suddenly, because you cannot just add a lot of crews to your company. It's an interesting situation where it looks like the solar industry takes a hit, and yet, they had one of the best years ever. What that means going forward, I don't know yet. I think a lot of people I'm talking with worked so hard end of last year that they kind of take a bit of a break. And only now, mid-January, when we record this, are kind of getting canning back into the game. We'll see. So another trend that I can highlight is the ask to know more about TPO. More people really kind of, I'm not going to say feel obligated, but give it a new, fresh look about like, should we do TPO or not? With pros and cons. Another trend I see, I guess more resi, but a clear trend away from using geo, caulking on the roof, to having more of those pucks you take it off and just plug it on the roof and add some screws. I thought it was like kind of like what's a big deal of that? But if you remove geo, That means you don't have to carry the geo in the warehouse from the van to the roof, on the roof, everywhere. You don't have geo on all the clothes and everywhere. Actually save a lot of time and effort. It's actually more significant than I gave it any thought. So the hardware keeps changing. I took geo as one example, but
Can you define for our audience what is geo if they're not familiar?
in the old days, when you make a roof penetration, you put caulking around it so that the water doesn't get in. Now, the water should not get in to begin with, but you just put caulking just to be sure. And why now those attachments that come on residential roofs, they come with multiple different ways, but basically you don't need a caulking anymore. It's self-sealing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so that geo example is just how hardware just keeps changing. In the early 2000s, when I did my first solar project, you attach it with a lot of bolts and nuts, and you're on the roof, and then those bolts fall, and then you're all in the gutter, and safety, there was no attachment. I was never attached in those early projects because we didn't even consider that. Whereas the industry now, people attach more regularly, and the attachments to the roof are just much, much, much faster. Like one click, one turn, all the same sizes for your impact drill and so on. But batteries also change. The amount of batteries is staggering, but the amount of power in each battery keeps rising, and the way to commission batteries keeps being easier. So all those technologies just keep evolving actually rapidly, much faster than you would think. So that's a very positive trend. Like, I'm always very impressed.
Yeah, that's amazing if you think about it. Like that really will increase the deployment, obviously, of solar as storage becomes, less costly, right? You're taking an intermittent power source that now you could control it, which is amazing. And it's also interesting too, just like the different trends, because it seems like everything's a lot more modular and a lot quicker to install. And that's all like, from innovation. So these are all really interesting trends. Is there anything that we haven't talked about that we should have talked about, at the beginning of the new year? Part of me feels like it was so busy once the big beautiful bill came and you could get the ITC last year at the full 30%. Obviously, you could safe harbor as well, but everyone was, working nonstop. And so that's interesting. Obviously, you saw like so many installations, happening, I'm sure, for the last quarter, the third or fourth quarter of 2025. It's also interesting because you've seen a lot of a consolidation and bankruptcy of, major companies in the space. It would be great to get your perspective what the future is going to look like.
Yeah, we can speak about the bankruptcies, but that's always on a very negative vibe there. So I'll skip on that one. But I have something else, another trend that I want to mention. So I've seen another solar company grow massively in February last year. And I'm like, oh, what's happening? And I thought about geopolitics, but no, that's not it. So I called it an installer and I kind of wanted to be informed. And the utility price just keeps rising. And you have a magical number of $500. Once people have to pay $500 a month for electricity, they are looking for solutions to do something about it. So basically, I think the utility is very smart. Everything's on auto pay. Not everything, but a lot of people have it on auto pay. And so they don't really care. It just happens. They just pay the bill and move on with their lives until it reaches $500. And then people say like, wait, what is this in my budget? They notice it. And then they do something about it. They call the local solar companies and like, hey, can you reduce this from me, please? And then solar companies do what they do best, and they show with potential solutions. And so I think a big driving force in our industry that we don't give enough credit for is just the rising utility bill. And once you pay $500 a month for the rest of your life, that will only go up. You're looking for an alternative. If you have a payback time, some people say like, well, the payback time will be done, ITC is higher. It's like, okay, fine. If it goes from 7 to 10 years or something, but you still have a payback time. If you have an utility bill for the rest of your life, there is no payback time. Like, any payback time is better than none. So I'm not sure everybody would agree on that, making that purchase of the solar system, but I think that's another driving force. We give maybe the ITC too much credit because I think the ordinary person in the street has never heard of the ITC, doesn't really care. But that utility bill, they know how much they pay.
Yeah, that's actually a great point and a great way to end the podcast. Power pricing obviously is going to continue to go up and probably more exponentially, especially in the US, we haven't really seen, power prices going up. But I think you're right. Like that obviously makes solar more attractive as the power price goes up, right? And the only way they could really lower it is like, to install solar at their house or community solar, but yeah, that's a huge point to mention.
I want to mention one more idea, crazy idea, but since we all talk about solar panels, here's a crazy idea. Any country that installs enough solar power associated with batteries, so if power at night, has a competitive advantage. Now, instead of a country, let's think about a county or city or like a small community. Let's say you have a community and you install solar for that community with a power, with a battery backup and battery system. So you would have now a home with a fixed utility bill for the entire place. So that would, I guess, make that home price quite interesting because it's associated with like cheap electricity for forever. Whereas now we take it for granted that we all have contracts and we buy homes or we move and we take it for granted to buy electricity from an utility and they can raise the price at any moment and that for forever. That's kind of the contract we have. It's like they raise the price and we just keep paying. But I think for large solar developers and community solar and very large developers, they could make agreements with entire cities. It's like, we're going to power the entire city. All power is provided. And with batteries, now, of course, you have the utilities that have a monopoly. But certain places that could work. And so you would have an entire city that would be a competitive advantage to get more business and homes there compared to another place. So just wanted to end with some creative alternative here.
I mean, that is pretty creative and innovative for sure. And I see it happening for sure, right? To differentiate from other places to live, obviously the stability in electricity prices. Well, this has been an amazing interview, Hervé. If our audience wants to learn more about Sunvoy or you specifically, what's the best way for them to do that?
I'm quite active on LinkedIn, so look at my name. It's easy to spell. It's the way you hear it. No, I'm kidding. It's Hervé Billet. That's Herve, and Billet is Billiet.
And we'll have that on the notes of the podcast as well. And Hervé, thank you for making time. This is a really great interview. I feel like we could go on for hours, but unfortunately, all good things have to end, and hopefully we'll have you back on the podcast soon. Thank you again, Hervé.
Thanks, Benoy.
Thanks for listening to the Solar Maverick Podcast. The Solar Maverick Podcast is brought to you by Renew Energy. We're a solar development and consulting firm. If you believe that this podcast is adding value to you, please give us a 5-star review and share with those that you think could benefit from this information. Please email all questions, suggestions, and feedback to info@renewenergy.com. That's info@reneuenergy.com. The Solar Maverick Podcast is produced by Podcast Laundry and executive produced by Benoy Thanjan and Kevin Y. Brown.